If you have a flowering plant that keeps pushing out leaves but never seems to bloom, this is probably why. It's not a disease, it's not poor soil quality, and it almost certainly isn't the plant's fault. There's one nutrient that triggers bloom production in flowering plants, and most home gardens are quietly running low on it right now. The fix costs less than $1. It comes from something most people throw away every single morning without thinking twice. Gardeners have used this method for generations, long before bloom booster bottles existed at any garden centre. And plant science is now confirming what those gardeners already knew from simple observation and experience. The reason most people don't know about it isn't complicated. It's simply that no one profits from telling you. And that's exactly why we're talking about it today. For generations, traditional growers across Asia, Latin America, and rural America used fruit and kitchen scraps to feed their flowering crops, not out of creativity, but out of necessity. In Southeast Asia, banana plant materials were composted directly into soil around flowering crops to improve yield and bloom quality, a practice passed down across generations. In early American homesteads, nothing from the kitchen went to waste. Every scrap had a productive purpose in the garden, and gardeners kept records of what worked and what didn't. In traditional European kitchen gardens, fruit scraps were routinely buried around rose beds and flowering borders, a practice documented in 19th century gardening literature, long before modern fertilizers existed. Different cultures, different climates, the same practical discovery, repeated and passed down without a single research paper to explain it. That kind of consistency across generations isn't coincidence, it's observation that held up over time. Over the past few decades, gardening became more commercialized, specialized products for every plant problem began filling store shelves, bloom stimulators, root activators, growth boosters, priced anywhere from $15 to $40 per bottle. Many of these products work, but most are built around the same core nutrients that simple, natural inputs already provide at almost no cost. As a result, practical knowledge that required no purchase quietly faded into the background. It wasn't hidden deliberately, it simply stopped being passed on, and most gardeners today never learned it existed. That's what we're correcting right now. If you enjoy finding simple, natural ways to help your plants produce healthy, beautiful blooms without spending money you don't need to spend, this channel was made for you. We focus on proven, sustainable methods that deliver real results using ingredients you already have at home. Nothing complicated, nothing expensive. Just honest gardening built on what actually works. Subscribe today and you'll start seeing your garden and your kitchen in a completely different way. Picture a backyard garden in late spring, a row of rose bushes along the fence that have been growing in the same spot for 12 years. A potted hibiscus on the back porch, a few geraniums that bloomed reliably every single year until this season they simply didn't. The leaves are full, the plants look healthy, but not one bloom. The gardener, a woman in her late 60s who has tended this garden for 2 decades, starts with the obvious things. She adjusts the watering schedule. She picks up a bottle of bloom booster from the hardware store. She waits. 4 weeks pass. Still nothing. She almost pulls the hibiscus entirely. Figures maybe it's just too old. Then she mentions it to her sister during a phone call. Her sister, who grows roses in a small yard in rural Tennessee, pauses and asks one simple question. Are you feeding them anything besides that store stuff? She sends over a method she learned from their mother, soaking banana peels in water overnight and pouring it around the base of the plant once a week. Nothing complicated, nothing to buy. The first reaction, honestly, is skepticism. It sounds too simple. But the plant was already struggling and she had nothing to lose. She tries it for 3 weeks straight, no dramatic overnight transformation, and this is where it gets interesting. Around day 12, she notices the first bud forming on the hibiscus. Small, barely there, then 2 more on the geraniums. By the end of the month, all 3 plants are blooming more than they had in 2 seasons, not because she found something new, because she went back to something real. Quick question before we continue. Do you have a flowering plant right now that is producing plenty of leaves, but simply refusing to bloom? Drop a yes or no in the comments below. I read every single one. Because what comes next explains exactly why that happens and what your plant, is quietly asking for. Here is what is actually happening when a healthy-looking flowering plant refuses to bloom. And this is where most people start to understand why the simple approach actually works. Flowering is driven by two specific nutrients more than any others: potassium and phosphorus. Potassium controls a lot of what happens inside plant cells. It regulates water movement, activates the enzymes responsible for flower bud formation, and helps the plant manage stress. When potassium levels drop, a plant can still grow leaves, but it loses the internal capacity to initiate and sustain blooms. It looks fine from the outside, but the chemistry that produces flowers never fully activates. Phosphorus supports energy transfer. When a plant prepares to bloom, it needs a significant burst of internal energy, and phosphorus is what makes that transfer possible. Low phosphorus is one of the most common and most overlooked reasons that otherwise healthy plants consistently underperform during bloom season. Now, here is where banana peels come in, and here is where it's important to be accurate about what they actually do. Fresh banana peels are not a concentrated fertilizer. What they are is a genuinely useful source of potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium in a form that releases slowly into the soil as the material breaks down. When you soak banana peels in water, a portion of those minerals transfers into the liquid. The resulting soak water is a mild, natural input, not a replacement for balanced fertilization, but a meaningful supplement for plants that are specifically lacking in these nutrients. Dried banana peel powder, which is a separate product, contains a much higher concentration of potassium. But for a home gardener applying a weekly liquid soak, the benefit comes from consistency over time, not from a single high concentration dose. And that distinction matters because it explains why patience is part of the process. And this is where things start to change for most underperforming plants. Calcium from the peels supports cell wall structure in developing petals, which means blooms that actually hold together rather than dropping prematurely. Magnesium supports chlorophyll production, which is how your plant converts sunlight into the energy it needs to bloom in the first place. Without enough magnesium, even a plant sitting in full sun cannot fully use the light it receives. Applied weekly to moist soil over 3 to 4 weeks, these nutrients accumulate gradually in the root zone. The plant isn't shocked or overwhelmed, it's simply being given what it was missing in a form it can absorb and actually use. That gradual approach is exactly why the results feel real and lasting, rather than a temporary boost that fades the moment you stop. The connection between potassium, phosphorus, and bloom production is not a trend or a home remedy passed around online. It is foundational plant nutrition science taught in every horticulture program in the country. University extension programs at Cornell, the University of Florida, and Purdue have all published accessible, public-facing guidance confirming that potassium deficiency directly suppresses flower bud initiation and reduces bloom quality in ornamental plants. This information is freely available, not locked behind research journals. It is standard gardening science that simply doesn't make it into most product marketing conversations. The role of phosphorus in flower development is equally well documented. It is one of the 3 primary nutrients listed on every fertilizer bag you have ever seen, the middle number in any NPK formula. The reason bloom booster products consistently lead with high phosphorus content is that the science behind it is solid. What most of those labels don't tell you is that organic sources can deliver the same core benefit when applied correctly and consistently over time. Research in sustainable agriculture has explored organic potassium sources, including fruit-based composts and liquid extracts from fruit materials. Results vary based on soil type, plant species, and application method, and organic inputs generally work more gradually than synthetic formulations. But for home gardeners working with established flowering plants in reasonably healthy soil, the difference in outcome over a full growing season is often much smaller than the difference in cost. The Rodale Institute, which has been researching organic and sustainable growing methods since 1947, consistently points to kitchen-based inputs as a practical and underused resource for home gardeners who want real results without depending on purchased products season after season. None of this is exotic or experimental. It is accessible, documented, and completely practical for anyone tending a backyard garden or a few pots on a porch. This is where most people, Get it wrong. And it's also why some gardeners try this method once, see nothing happen, and conclude it doesn't work. Almost always, the problem isn't the method. It's one of these 5 specific mistakes. The first is using too much too quickly. Potassium and phosphorus are essential, but in excess they create nutrient imbalance, specifically blocking calcium and magnesium uptake. The result is yellowing leaves, weak growth, and a plant that actually looks worse after treatment than before. More is not better here. Consistency over time is what produces real results. The second is applying the liquid to leaves and stems instead of the soil. This method works entirely through the root system. Applying it above soil level does nothing productive, and it creates new problems. Organic residue on foliage in warm weather attracts fruit flies and creates ideal conditions for fungal growth. Always apply directly to the base of the plant at soil level, every single time. The third is using unrinsed peels from conventionally grown bananas. Commercially grown bananas carry pesticide residue on the outer peel surface. When you soak an unrinsed peel, some of that residue enters your soak water and eventually your soil. A thorough rinse under running water before soaking reduces this significantly. If you use organic bananas, the concern is minimal, but rinsing is still a reasonable habit. The fourth is starting the application too late. Banana peel water is most effective when applied 2 to 3 weeks before the plant's natural bloom window opens, not after blooming has already failed to start. At that point, the plant has passed through its primary bud initiation phase, and the benefit will mostly carry over into next season. Think of this as preparation, not rescue. The fifth, and this is the one that creates the most frustration, is expecting overnight results and stopping too early. This is a soil building method. Most gardeners who apply it correctly begin noticing visible changes within 10 to 14 days of consistent weekly application. Stopping after 1 or 2 applications because nothing dramatic happened is like planting seeds and pulling them up after a week. You will stop just before the results begin. This method is genuinely effective, but honest gardening advice means being clear about what it can and cannot do. And this is where we build the trust that actually matters long term. Banana peel water will not save a plant suffering from severe root rot. It will not reverse significant damage from pests, frost, or extended drought. It will not bring back a plant that has been without adequate water or light for a prolonged period. These problems require different, more targeted interventions, and no single ingredient, however nutrient-rich, fixes every kind of plant stress. You will still deal with some plant problems, even after using this consistently. That's real gardening. The goal isn't perfection. It's giving your plants the best foundation possible so they can do what they are naturally built to do. What banana peel water does exceptionally well is support flowering plants that are fundamentally healthy but underperforming. A plant with intact roots, adequate sunlight, and consistent watering that simply isn't blooming the way it should. That is the exact situation this method was designed for. The plant already has most of what it needs. It is missing one key piece of nutritional support, and this provides it gradually and safely. Think of it as a natural, sustainable supplement, not emergency medicine. Use consistently alongside good foundational care. Proper watering, appropriate light, and light seasonal pruning, it delivers real, noticeable improvement over time. Roses, hibiscus, bougainvillea, geraniums, and African violets tend to respond most visibly. Plants in severely depleted soil may need broader soil improvement before any single input can fully take effect. Used correctly, this is a proven, affordable, and deeply practical tool for a healthier, more productive garden, season after season, year after year. Just not overnight. Here is exactly how to prepare and use banana peel liquid fertilizer to support more abundant blooms, step by step, with nothing left out. You will need 2 to 3 ripe banana peels. Yellow or lightly spotted is ideal. Nutrient content is highest at this stage of ripeness. Avoid fully blackened, overripe peels as they are more likely to promote unwanted bacterial activity in your soak water. You will also need a clean glass jar or container, at least 1 litre in size, with a loosely fitting lid and 1 litre of room temperature tap water. One quick note before you start. If your tap water has a noticeably strong chlorine smell, pour it into an open container and let it sit uncovered for about an hour first. Chlorine dissipates quickly in open air, and reducing it helps protect the natural soil activity you are trying to encourage. If your water smells fine, don't overthink it. Just use it. Step 1. Rinse your peels. Hold each peel under running water and rinse the outer surface thoroughly before soaking. This reduces pesticide residue that could otherwise transfer into your soak water and eventually into your garden soil. Simple, takes 10 seconds per peel. Step 2. Prepare the soak. Place 2 to 3 rinsed peels into your clean container. Pour 1 litre of room temperature water over them. Rest the lid loosely on top rather than sealing it tightly. You want some air circulation. Set the container in a cool indoor spot away from direct sunlight. A kitchen counter or pantry shelf works perfectly well. Step 3. Wait a full 48 hours. This time frame matters. 24 hours is not enough for maximum mineral release. Beyond 60 hours, the risk of fermentation increases. At the 48-hour mark, the water will have turned a light amber or brown color. That is exactly what you want to see. It means potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, and calcium have moved from the peel into the liquid, and your soak is ready. Step 4. Strain and dilute. Remove the peels and strain the liquid through a fine strainer or small piece of cloth to remove debris. Then mix your strained banana water with an equal volume of plain water, 1 cup of banana water to 1 cup of plain water. This dilution step is not optional. It prevents the concentration from becoming too high for sensitive root systems and ensures even absorption across the soil. Now here's the part that actually makes this work, and the step most people skip entirely. Step 5. Apply to moist soil, not dry soil. Before you apply your banana water, water your plant normally first. Applying this liquid to dry soil causes uneven absorption, which means nutrients concentrate in certain areas and remain unavailable in others. Moist soil allows the liquid to spread evenly across the full root zone. Pour slowly and evenly around the entire base of the plant. Aim for the area beneath the outer edge of the leaf canopy, which is where the most active feeder roots are located. Step 6. Follow a consistent weekly schedule. Apply once per week for 3 to 4 consecutive weeks. This gradual approach builds soil nutrient levels steadily without overwhelming the root system. After the initial cycle, reduce to once every 2 weeks as an ongoing maintenance application through the remainder of the bloom season. Do not throw away the used peels after straining. Cut or tear them into small pieces and work them lightly into the top inch of soil around the base of your plant. As they continue breaking down over the following 2 to 3 weeks, they will release potassium slowly into the soil, acting as a natural slow-release supplement that supports your weekly liquid applications. For potted plants, including African violets, peace lilies, anthuriums, or potted geraniums, use a slightly more diluted mix of 1 part banana water to 2 parts plain water. Potted plants have limited soil volume, so nutrients accumulate faster. The gentler concentration protects roots while still delivering the same gradual benefit over time. You may not see dramatic results in the first week. That is completely normal and expected. This method builds over time, and that is actually what makes it sustainable. Plants that recover gradually tend to stay healthier longer than plants that respond to a sharp chemical spike and then decline when the product runs out. Think about how simple this actually is. A plant that isn't blooming is not giving up. It's running low on something specific, and it cannot ask you for it directly. It just stops producing flowers and waits. Generations of gardeners understood that without any research papers or product labels. They watched their plants, paid attention to what worked, and passed the knowledge forward. Not as a secret, just as something practical that didn't require spending money to use. This method won't fix every plant problem you'll ever face. You'll still deal with some challenges. That's just honest gardening. But for a flowering plant that looks healthy and simply isn't blooming the way it should, this is a real, grounded, affordable place to start. And that is the kind of gardening this channel is built around. Not perfect results, just honest ones, rooted in methods that have quietly worked for a very long time. Try this on 1 flowering plant this week. Prepare your banana peel soak tonight, Apply it to moist soil tomorrow morning, and then just pay attention over the next 10 to 14 days. Watch the leaves. Look for the first signs of bud formation. Notice what changes and what doesn't. Because observing your plants closely is where real gardening knowledge actually comes from. Once you understand what your flowering plants specifically need to produce healthy, abundant blooms, you stop guessing, and you stop spending money on products that were never necessary. That is a genuinely self-sufficient, sustainable approach to a garden you can be proud of. If you want more simple, proven methods that help your garden thrive without extra cost or complexity, subscribe. This is exactly what this channel is built around, and there is a lot more coming.